Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. Wow, what a penetrating new moon we had last week. I just felt completely cracked open, and the sensitivity has been cranked for me. It just feels like I can sense and feel everything so much more, particularly the suffering on the planet. It's like I'm walking around with heightened awareness around the pain of every single living thing and being. But what's interesting is while I'm feeling that, I'm also feeling the love, the joy, the pleasure, the beauty. And this made me really realize we are in a big point of cracking open to life, to feel more, to hold more, to process more. And this is the journey. With the new moon in Leo last week, with Mercury retrograde in Leo, we are working on the heart space. With Jupiter in Cancer, this is expanded. And in order to be with the experience of life fully and completely, and honestly and authentically, we go through these waves of awakening, these waves of expansion, upgrade. And, when I first began this work, I heard about, the upgrade periods. And I was like, yes, I can't wait. I'm ready to upgrade. And the more and more intimate with it I become, I realize that the upgrade is not necessarily pretty. It can be messy. It can be painful even. It can even be overwhelming at times, because we come to this life with generations, lifetimes of sort of like calcified material and imprints that we're here to process and move through. And when we experience an influx of light, an influx of awakening, an influx of consciousness to integrate, it means we have to be with what has kept us separated from ourselves, from light, from awareness, from consciousness, from love. And this process isn't necessarily lovely or exciting. It can sometimes be that, and oftentimes is that. But it's also intense, and it requires that we go into those spaces and tend to and be with the calcified areas or the imprints that have kept us separated from love. And this is heart work. We crack open to expand. And we go into these calcified places to be with and tend to the pain that calcified them in the first place. And these heart walls, these calcified layers, are protective, and they were there for a reason. They occurred when something too big, too much, too intense, too painful happened to us. They protected a part of us that wasn't evolved or developed enough to be with the immensity of this disappointment, this pain, this grief. But they also keep us separated from love. They not only protect us from pain, they also keep us separated from love. They keep us separated from feeling, from empathy, from connection. And so when we decide to upgrade, and I mean truly upgrade, I don't mean the spiritual bypassing upgrade that we see all over social media that talks about ascension and words and phrases that you've never heard of to just sort of confuse your psyche and get you spun out on all of these different things you should be doing. I mean the real upgrades, the heart upgrades, the tangible, visceral, human upgrades, the upgrades to your somatic experience in this life, nervous system upgrades, heart upgrades. These are the upgrades that quite literally change how you experience life. You have to go through the full descent before you can ascend into a new lived experience. And so tending to these heart walls, tending to what has kept us separated from love is the most essential phase in this process of upgrading. And it requires wild and radical self-awareness, honesty, truth. When you meet a consciousness threshold, you can feel it. You can tell that there's an ego death coming. There's something that I'm going to have to witness within myself that is uncomfortable. The way that I have participated that has kept me in this loop of suffering, of victimhood, of disconnection. And these are breakthrough periods. These are upgrade periods, but they're also painful and they can be challenging and they can be incredibly confronting. And I'm seeing a lot of people in this place right now. And we can bypass around it for sure, but we'll never actually enter the upgrade if we do that. So the universe is delivering heavy duty confrontation right now. We're having to own and accept the ways that we participate in what we're experiencing in life that we'd like to change, how we're perpetuating it, how we're participating. We might not have created the pain point in the beginning, but we can certainly get attached to it. And this is the work right now, and it's revealing and potent and confronting. But this is the underworld journey. This is the part where we descend and we go into the spaces that need our attention and attunement so that we can actually heal, upgrade, transcend where we've been before. I feel like I'm so deeply in this process, and I'm, like I said earlier, feeling and sensing so much more intensely. And we all connect to different things in life, of course. We all connect to different causes, different passions, the pieces of life that activate and excite and engage us. It doesn't have to look like the other person's, but it's so important to stay connected to what moves you. And I've talked about sacred activism in the past, and so I'm not going to go into that too much today, but I just feel like we all have these portals or these gateways or these cracks and crevices that lead us deeper into our hearts. And that is the pathway of the heart work that we're in. It's allowing those spaces, those cracks, those crevices, those portals to be illuminated and having the courage, Leo, to enter into them. I mentioned in the last episode that I lost Arlo's ashes, and before that I'd kind of felt almost a little numb, if that makes sense. I mean, there's probably layers of dissociation as I approached this threshold within my own life and work that I knew on some level I would be entering into. And Arlo has always been my portal into the heart, my soul dog Arlo, for those of you that are new. So losing his ashes just cracked my heart open. I just felt this wave of emotion, tears, grief, loss, beauty, love flood in. And since then, it's just been so open. I can't go anywhere without just feeling so much. I can't look at an animal or another human without wondering about their own experience in this moment. And I am a highly sensitive person. I am someone who feels so much, though. So it's been a journey in my life to learn how to be with the heightened sensitivity while also moving through life and being human and having to deal with the 3D realm and the physical plane, and how to stay with the masculine layers as well. But I feel like I've reached a threshold in my own personal work where I am integrating more feeling. I am breaking down some heart walls. I am being with emotion in a new way. And this is a forever process. So it's can feel sometimes like a descent or a regression, but oftentimes it's just a part of the journey, and we have the contractions and expansions, we have the hills and the valleys, and this is all so important and so part of this human experience. So this work will continue through the summer. I talked about that in the last episode. As we move through August, we'll be in underworld territory. We're entering a pretty heavy retrograde season. We started the year with retrogrades. We had this pocket in the middle that's been really electric, really fast, really expansive. And I talked about that a lot in basically every episode of 2025 so far. But we're moving into some more underworld energy. Mercury is currently retrograde. We have basically all of the planets besides Jupiter retrograde currently. Chiron is stationing retrograde this week. And through August, we're really in this heart work. Because that's what it all really comes down to at the end of the day. When we can work with the heart, when we can allow it to lead, when we can allow it to feel safe enough to lead, we can turn down the noise of the mind that's always looking for what's next, what's safe, where can we overthink or overanalyze in order to find more safety. The heart just knows, but it does need tending. It does need space and time and attunement to tend to the layers that protect it. And tending to these heart walls can feel like a breakdown, and it's really a breakthrough through to a deeper level and layer of self-awareness, self-love, connection with self, so that we can then experience the world in that way as well. This journey is about breaking down and dissolving the calcified parts of us, the generational trauma we've carried, the past life trauma we've carried. This life is about choosing love over fear. As humans, we learn through making mistakes and choosing differently, breaking things and rebuilding them again. And we've made so many mistakes, and we continue to, because we can only meet ourselves at the level of consciousness that we're at. We can only meet life at the level of consciousness that we're at. And the heart walls really hold this consciousness. So when we have calcification or walls, we close to what we don't want to feel, but we also close to connection and love as well. So this week is going to feel like a deepening, maybe even from last week, although last week was a bit of an underworld journey with the new moon in Leo opposite Pluto, with Mercury retrograde in Leo. This week might feel tender as we sort of integrate and process what we've found, what we've felt, as we touch and feel into these heart walls or these pain points where we've separated from love, separated from self, separated from another. We're pulled into this tender inventory. This week we have Venus entering Cancer on July 30th for a month-long journey there until August 24th. On the same day, we have Chiron stationing retrograde in Aries until January. We have a Mercury Cazimi while it's retrograde, while it's in the underworld of Leo. And on August 1st, Venus in Cancer, newly in Cancer, squares Saturn retrograde and Neptune retrograde in Aries. I talked a lot about this in the last episode. If you have early degree cardinal placements, you are going to feel the next few months pretty immensely. Anytime something enters a cardinal sign, it's going to be met with Saturn and Neptune, which are at the early degrees of Aries. And they're currently retrograde. So it's going to have us take inventory. Saturn likes to take inventory. Neptune doesn't. So we're going to be navigating form and formlessness. What's real, what's tangible, and what isn't. What's an illusion? What's real and what's imagined? What's still asking to be grieved? And what parts of you are ready to be reparented? Cancer can be really soft and tender, but it also can be protective as well. And so there's this opportunity here with this tension between Cancer and Aries to build new emotional infrastructure rooted in real, authentic connection rather than collapse or protection, the extremes of Cancer. So before going into the energy of this week, I wanted to mention that my course, Inner Compass, which brings you through the journey of the lunar nodes, really understanding your North Node and your South Node, has a 10% off discount code just through the end of this week, through Thursday, the end of July. So if you've been wanting to take this course, now is the time. It's 10% off with the code NORTH. And I love this course so much. Like I said in the last episode and episodes before, I've been working on this course for probably 8 years. It's been such a journey of really integrating and understanding intimately the work of the lunar nodes. And the lunar nodes are an important piece of evolutionary astrology. They really guide us and give so much context and information around where we've been and where we're headed in this lifetime. So we can quite literally work with our lunar nodes only in our birth chart and get so much information and context. But what they really do is they just sort of tone and shadow the rest of our chart. But I love working with these two pieces because they tell us so much in just one segment of our chart. They were really life-changing for me to work with and have been incredible in guiding my path and my journey over the last 10 years. Actually, it's probably been 12 years now that I'm thinking about my age. So if you're interested in learning more about your North Node, your South Node, or even learning about your loved ones, your family members, friends, specific relationships you're really trying to understand, dynamics within your life, this course is for you. It's 10% off through Thursday with the code NORTH. And I really want to begin this week talking about Venus in Cancer. Venus has been in Gemini. It's been in this curious social place, connecting with groups of people, networks, community, prioritizing fun and play and socialization. But now as Venus shifts into the deeper waters of Cancer, shifts into the 4th house, the focus is going to move to family, to roots, to home, to your emotional landscape. And Venus in Cancer is the archetype of the Great Mother. It's connected to emotional safety, ancestral memory. This opens us to a new cycle around how we give and receive love, our values, which is Venus's terrain, especially in relationship to home, family, belonging. I've been having these reoccurring dreams, and it's connected to the deeper work that I'm doing around the heart. And I've always had a wound around belonging. And so every single dream is related to the ways in which I haven't felt like I belong in life. And it's been so amazing to track that through Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde, I feel like, is ultimate dream material. And Venus moving into Cancer is going to emphasize that even more. And Venus in Cancer is all about the heart walls. It's all about tending to how and where we connect from. This is bringing us deeper into our roots, into our lineage, specifically our feminine lineage, our maternal lineage. Where have we gathered our ideas, our imprints around love, how we give and receive love, how we connect with others, connect with ourselves. This is connected to a sense of belonging within the heart. In its highest expression, Venus in Cancer can help us really soften the walls around the heart, to learn the difference between a boundary and a wall. Learning how to caretake our own needs internally so that we can then caretake others in a beautiful, embodied, and authentic way. Venus really represents what we value, how we magnetize what we attract, and how we connect. Venus in Cancer focuses these values towards emotional safety, family and chosen family, home, nourishment, intimacy, emotional attunement, emotional maturity. This is about rewiring how you feel safe internally, your emotional security. This will ask for us to go into our heart walls, to be with and tend to what's keeping us separated from love, from self-love, from love with another, or perhaps where we need boundaries, where we need containment to feel safe, to open to love more. Love is pure, love is real. We can never give or receive too much love. Patterns around overfunctioning or abandoning self, which can be the shadow of Venus in Cancer, or closing down, shutting down, cutting off from love, are really all one and the same. Because when we're self-abandoning or overfunctioning, we're not actually giving more love. We're operating from fear, from the fear of abandonment. So we're sacrificing self in order to give something, but it's not actually love. It's something less authentic. And it's something that keeps us sort of trapped in these repetitive cycles of pain and loss and abandonment. We're operating from fear rather than love when we either overfunction, overgive, abandon self, or when we shut down and close off and avoid. So what we're doing now is we're looking at where we hold wounds around the giving or receiving of love. Where do we hold programs, patterns, stories, and narratives around our worthiness of receiving love, around the safety of giving and receiving love? This transit will ask for us to slow down, to marinate a little. June and July might have felt really fast and electric. August is going to be more of a slow time to marinate in what you're feeling and experiencing. It might not be a great time to make big plans, to plan trips, to plan excursions, to commit to things far off in advance. August is going to be a month of feeling. So even collectively, Venus in Cancer can really surface a lot of ancestral grief, attachment patterns, and our unresolved needs for care, love, attunement. This is reparenting work. This is inner child work. This is the work that we must do to attune to our own unmet needs so that we don't project those onto others, to our relationships. This is going to surface any patterns you have around emotional enmeshment, codependence, protectiveness, avoidance. This is going to bring up unconscious psychic material around your maternal line, your mother, memory, nostalgia, belonging, home, safety, and security in intimacy, in connection. This is a feminine placement for Venus. So we are going to be in the fields. We're going to be in our emotional layers. We're going to be in the emotional body. Can you feel what you need to feel rather than suppress, avoid, detach from it? You don't even need to make sense of any of this. Can you just let yourself feel? The same day on July 30th, Chiron enters its retrograde journey through Aries. And Chiron has been ingressing into Aries since 2018. It will be moving into Taurus in 2027. So we are towards the end of this transit. I have a lot of clients, a lot of listeners who have a Chiron in Aries. So you're in your Chiron return. For those of you with Chiron and Taurus, you are beginning to prepare for your return. And Chiron is the wounded healer. So it's bringing us into our wounds, bringing us into our pain points, further emphasizing this Mercury retrograde work in Leo, Venus in Cancer. And Chiron will be retrograde until January 2nd. So the wounded healer is deepening its process. This is beginning a 5-month journey, review of how we're carrying and responding to our core wounds around identity, self-trust, assertion, the self in general. This is going to bring us into our work around rage, anger, ancestral warrior trauma, how we respond and react to life. It's going to reveal where we have abandoned self in the name of fitting in, social propriety, belonging. Once again, we're going to be looking at belonging in August. And this is a deepening. We've been in this work since 2018. This is an upgrade around how we take the reins of our life, how we respond and react to life, victim consciousness. This is an initiation, an opportunity to deepen our level of self-awareness, to really understand why we're doing what we're doing, how we're responding to life, where we're operating from. This is a perfect time to be doing anger work. And anger work is so important. So many of us have trapped fight energy held within ourselves. The times throughout our timeline where we couldn't or didn't respond authentically, where we needed to say something but we couldn't, where we needed to move or push or stand up for something, oftentimes ourselves, when we had a primal surge of life force but had to trap it and suppress it instead of feel it. And these pockets of charge can build into stories and narratives and layers, and it can create illness and sickness. It can create patterns within your nervous system. Panic attacks are a trapped fight charge. So this is an opportunity to be with this rage, this anger, in a new way. This is about finding a deeper layer of our power, our truth, our potential, our life force, and letting it speak, letting it move, not from the wound to create more trauma or more rupture, but up through the heart, expressed as purity, as truth, as authenticity. And then on July 31st, we have the Mercury Cazimi in Leo. And Mercury, of course, is retrograde in Leo. So Mercury experiences a Cazimi when it's both direct and retrograde. When it's retrograde, it's in the underworld. So it's subterranean. So it illuminates, the sun illuminates our subterranean space, our basement, our subconscious, our underworld. This is a point of clarity in the underworld journey of Mercury retrograde. This brings insight around visibility, our voice, self, identity, ego, leadership, courage. This is about reclaiming your truth, your voice, shifting how you express yourself. This is always a point of illumination. It's a point of clarity, an opportunity to see integrate, to understand, or to feel on a deeper level what you've learned through Mercury retrograde so far. Sort of a checkpoint. And this is a point that always occurs during Mercury retrograde. We have a Cazimi. And so the other half of Mercury retrograde can often feel like maybe a bit more easeful, clarifying. You might understand what you're moving through and why on a deeper level. So this is a really helpful transit. And towards the end of this week, on August 1st, Venus newly in Cancer. So we're already feeling the feels. We're already tender. We're starting to crack open more. Venus begins to square Saturn retrograde in Aries and Neptune retrograde in Aries. And we know Saturn and Neptune have been doing this dance together. They've been working through the layers of the last degrees of Pisces together, the first degrees of Aries together. Now they're both retrograde in Aries. They're both going to be dipping back into Pisces later this year. And this is a reckoning point with Venus squaring Saturn and Neptune, both retrograde. Saturn loves boundaries, discipline, structure, form. Neptune loves dissolution and sometimes delusion or illusion. It's unformed. Venus in Cancer is deeply emotional. So the square may feel like you're hitting a wall. You might feel old wounds around boundaries, walls, fears of rejection, abandonment, unworthiness, where you need firmer boundaries, where you need to replace your walls with boundaries, where you just need to speak your truth in order to receive the love that you desire, where you're maybe being a doormat or not having enough boundaries in relationships, or maybe where you're too boundaried, where you're too shut down, too cut off from connection. This is going to reveal where you hold illusions around love with Venus squaring Neptune, where you have rose-colored glasses on, where you're pedestaling or idolizing someone or yourself, and where you need a reality check. An awakening around how you're giving and receiving love in your life. This is a point of refinement and clarity. This is a point where you get to examine where your emotional needs are no longer being met through fantasy, avoidance, unsupportive patterns in your relationships with self and others. This is also a time to just feel, to let yourself feel these layers of loss, these layers of abandonment, rejection, these wound points, grief, anger, frustration, so that you can access the other side. Sometimes we try to figure things out before we feel them. The work here is to feel it first and then let clarity come through if it's meant to. And this is going to be a tender week. This is going to be a heart week. This is going to be a week where we get to crack through some of these layers, some of these areas where we hold programming, wounding, biases. This is a powerful week in this upgrade process, and I'm so looking forward to hearing how this episode lands for you, how you're feeling, if you're experiencing similar things around sensitivity, emotional attunement. I couldn't even go to the History Museum without bursting into tears the other day because I just felt the pain and suffering of the mistakes that we've made throughout history. So I'm in this with you. I'm so happy you're here. As always, I'm so grateful every time you share on social media with a friend, you share episodes, you share the podcast. It truly means the world to me. Don't forget, the North and South Node course is 10% off just for the next few days. So if you've been wanting to join the course, now is the time. And this is self-paced also, so you can work on it for as long as you'd like. You can go as slow or as fast as you'd like. You'll have the course forever, so you'll always be able to return back to it and do the meditations, go through the workbook. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your dedication, for your self-awareness, for your big, beautiful heart. I'm sending so much love to each and every one of you, and I'll see you next week.